name is Jen. Welcome to my channel. I'm an expat in Berlin, and I also consider myself a digital nomad. A question I get from a lot of people is, Jen, how the heck do you get to work from anywhere in the world and travel so much? If you're curious about how, keep watching. I have always loved traveling and learning about different cultures, and in the beginning, I did not think that it was possible to travel and work from anywhere, but let me tell you, it is possible. In this video, I want to share how I once was working corporate 9 to 5 at a desk job and then changed to working abroad from anywhere in the world as my own boss as a communications consultant. I'll also share with you advice and lessons that I learned along the way that can hopefully inspire and help you as well. And in future videos, I'm going to go into more details about the steps and the how-to, so please make sure to subscribe to my channel. Although I live in Berlin, Germany, this is my home. Behind me, I'm so happy here. I consider myself a digital nomad. For me, I often think of being a digital nomad as being just someone who can work from anywhere in the world, whether that's connecting via your phone or your laptop or whatever method that is. Basically, you are location agnostic. For example, this past year, I worked from Germany, from Spain, Denmark, the UK, Switzerland, and multiple places in the United States. I'm able to do this and work remotely from any city that has an internet connection because I am my own boss as a freelancing marketing communications consultant. I help people design communication strategies, find out what their communication pain points are, create content, do marketing, and just all around try to be a communications doctor for startups and tech companies. However, I want to share that my path was unconventional. It's not just like I was waking up one day and suddenly I had this dream job. No, it was a long and windy path, and that's exactly what I want to share. That when you want to do something and you have a dream, sometimes there's a lot of ups and downs, and you just have to trust the process. All right, are you ready to hear my story and how I did it? And maybe some advice to help you. So what a lot of people don't know is in a former life, I was a cancer research scientist. Yes, it is crazy. I actually had a biology degree and I thought I was going to be a doctor or a veterinarian, and then I ended up being a DNA researcher. I know that sounds nothing like what I do now, and that is correct, which is the whole point of this story, is that life is non-linear, and sometimes you just have to follow the path and do crazy things along the way. So when I was a scientist in the lab, I was really good at what I did, and I was really passionate about it because, obviously it was to ultimately save lives. However, I knew that I was a really extroverted person and I wanted to work more on the business side. So what I did was I got a marketing internship with the Luxury Marketing Council in San Francisco, and I also volunteered for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. The lesson that I learned from this was to be honest with myself and know that if I wanted to do a career change, I really needed to build my skills. And so I volunteered my time and grabbed those extracurricular activities. So if you're thinking about doing a career change, don't be shy to look online and see what else is out there or in your network and try to see what can help you make the jump in your career. Because I organized a lot of the things in the lab, I was able to apply as a project coordinator at a biotech company. Now you may be asking, what the heck? How did she go from scientist to project coordinator? What happened was I was working with a staffing agency to see maybe where I could possibly fit in my industry. Hold up, you guys. I had to add this segment to the video because I want to be honest. I left out a really important part of the journey that is fundamental. And that was that I needed a recruiter because I actually was no longer a scientist. So in 2010, 40% of the biotech company that I was working at got laid off. And at the same time, my dad was already in the hospital because he had lung disease. And literally on the same day as the layoff, my mom got diagnosed with cancer after going to the hospital for stomach pains. I'm being honest with you guys because it just proves my point that life is non-linear. The layoff was an amazing thing that happened because it allowed me to be on unemployment and take care of my family at the time. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in 2010 from his lung disease. And my mom had cancer and it eventually passed. The point is, sometimes shitty things happen in our lives, and they often do. And these fundamentally shape our future careers and sometimes points us in the direction of our dreams, if you can believe that. So yeah, had to re-record this segment to tell you guys the truth. Let's get back to how I got to a recruiter. So I knew that I was already coming from biotechnology as a research scientist. So I basically put together a resume and worked with the staffing agency to make it look like it was more business. So I put my business skills on there and pitched myself as a project coordinator because I was really good at organization, for example. I was super lucky that one of the top biotech companies in the Bay Area in California at the time hired me as a project coordinator. I started really small, I started as a beginner project coordinator, and then I started taking project management classes and really taking bigger and bigger projects on. The lesson that I learned from this was to not be afraid to make a career change. Given that there's some logical pivot. For example, I was once a scientist, and so I stayed within my industry and then became a project coordinator, then a project manager. Also, another lesson is be humble. Be humble. Know that you sometimes have to start from the beginning again if you want to make a career change. Many people do it. So can you. While I was a project coordinator and a project manager at a biotech company, this was over the span of 4 years, I realized that I was really, really good at communication and really passionate about it. In fact, one of my first development opportunities, i.e. volunteer opportunities at the company, was to lead a communications team. This was pretty significant because our department was 1,200 people and we were so dedicated and we loved what we were doing, and it brought me personally so much joy. Plus, being a project manager, I realized that communication is like 80% of your job. Really, this is where I discovered that I had immense communication talents. The lesson here, find where your passion meets your talents. I discovered that because there's a lot of communication pains in companies and just the world in general, I wanted to become part of the solution, and I wanted to solve this problem. How can we make communication better? I really wanted to make it my full-time job and my career. A lesson for career pivots, I would say in general, is if something really pains you, how can you go towards a career that solves some of these problems that would make you happy and that would make others happy because you're lending your talents to where it's needed. I had this crazy idea to do communications full-time, but there were no openings in my department when I asked. So I did what any irrational person would do, which was quit and take a break. At this point, I decided to take a break from corporate. I was burnt out. My advice for you and the lesson that I learned is Don't be afraid to take a break if you need to recalibrate. It's really good for your mental, emotional, and physical health. Since I had saved enough money for a couple of months, I decided that I wanted to travel and get away from all the noise and gain some perspective by being in other countries and pushing myself. I traveled by myself to many different countries in Europe for 5 weeks to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. I wanted to process my thoughts. I wanted to do some journaling, and I wanted to just push myself and challenge myself. I was in Istanbul and I was watching all these families around, and they were having ice cream and sitting together. And at that time I was completely alone, and I sat on a bench and, I cried. I felt really lonely, but sometimes it's when you are alone that you get away from all of the noise from everybody else and you're able to think more clearly. So my advice for you is to push yourself to be uncomfortable, because if you're going to make a big career change or get into entrepreneurship or switch from working from a desk job to remote, there's going to be significant changes in your life, and you have to learn how to get familiar with being uncomfortable and be okay with being uncomfortable. When I got back to the United States, I started all over again with a clean slate. I became basically a student again. I read a lot of books. For example, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, which inspired me to work remotely and escape the 9-to-5 life. If you want to work remotely, this is an extremely good book to read. Tim Ferriss also has a lot of podcasts with interesting guests as well, so I highly recommend. I also attended classes, and I was really truly a student again. I went online to General Assembly. So General Assembly offers a lot of classes for personal development and career development, and they have locations all over the world. So I took classes in marketing, PR. I even took a class in how to build a WordPress website and how to code at least a little bit. So on top of reading books and go to classes again, I watched things online that were inspiring. There was a Stanford Office Hours episode on YouTube. This video, which I'll link below to Designing Your Life, was instrumental in my career journey. Bill Burnett and Dave Evans inspired me to design the life that I want, the job that I want, and it really taught me that you don't have to know everything. You can just kind of make it up as you go along, and that's what designers do, and that's what people do, and it's a beautiful process. Aside from the YouTube video on Designing Your Life, I can definitely recommend getting the book. This wasn't available when I was going through all this stuff because it came out in 2016, but now it's available for you, and I highly recommend getting it. The lesson here is to not be afraid to be a student all over again and approach things with a beginner's mindset and just soak up all the knowledge that you can. Through some mind mapping and just jotting things down, I realized that what I really wanted to do was try my hand at being a freelancer, at being a communication consultant. I already had the organization skills from being a project manager. I knew that I could understand a lot of complex technical things because I was once a scientist. And I also knew that I could design communication strategies because for many years while I was working in corporate, I was also leading a team of communication consultants already. I could have joined a company, but I just thought, why not just try it on my own? The truth is, I knew that I could always go back to having a corporate job. And I know that becoming a freelancer and starting something on my own, which I had never done before, was a huge leap, but I kind of approached it with the designer's mindset, that designing your life philosophy where you just prototype and see what sticks, and crazy things are not too crazy, and you just put what you can on the board and don't eliminate things even if they sound out there, because a lot of things are possible if you just go for it. So the lesson is don't be afraid to prototype. You can always iterate and improve as you go along. Okay, so then I finally decided I would be a freelancer and start my own company, but then I needed clients. I thought I could just announce to the world that I was a freelancer and I was gonna do communications consulting and I could help a lot of people, and then people would be knocking down my door. Well, that didn't happen. For a couple of months, I was just kind of hopeless, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And I felt like a fraud. What I wasn't doing, I realized, was marketing myself properly and telling people exactly what I wanted to do for companies and put it out there. So I put it out on Facebook, on LinkedIn, I wrote some emails, and actually my first few clients for my consultancy were some of my friends' startups. Then one day, an amazing thing happened. So when I had left corporate, I had always had the idea that I would go back and help this company with communication, and that would have been my dream client, and I knew exactly the pains that they had and how to solve them. A girl that I had worked with at this previous biotech company saw that I was doing consulting now because I announced it on all my social channels. And she said, hey, there's this opportunity. Would you be interested in talking to so-and-so? And that became one of my biggest clients and one that I am so thankful for. So my advice here is to leverage your network. Let everybody know when you make a career change or you're working on something new. Don't be shy. Post on your social channels, send those emails, make those calls, knock on your neighbor's door with baked cookies or whatever you have to do, but let people know what you're working on because your friends want to support you. Another piece of advice is to really know your value and be confident. Sometimes you can feel like an imposter. It's a thing, it's called imposter syndrome. And you might feel like, oh, what am I doing? Who's gonna hire me? I'm worthless. But be confident in your abilities. Be confident in your abilities and your personality and your drive, and you can make it. Great, now that I had some clients, I needed to build my credibility. So I built my credibility at first by working in the office. So I was showing up at client sites in the beginning, and in fact, I commuted a lot. When you start in the office and do your work in the office, you can build those face-to-face relationships with future clients, build trust, and to be honest, sometimes do better work when you're in person initially. Then later on, after I had done that for about a year of doing client work, basically in-house and on-site, I built enough credibility and experience to be able to say, hey, would it be okay if I work remotely? And I was lucky that they were open to that. Now, I work fully remotely unless there's an important workshop or face-to-face meeting, or I'm meeting with a client for the first time. And I've learned that you can do work remotely just as effectively. You just need to manage your time and your time zones appropriately. So my advice here is start in-house, start on-site if you need to first. You can start small and then pivot to working remotely later after you've built those relationships and proven that you can do good work. All right, guys, I know that we covered a lot in this video. My goal for today was to share my own personal story and advice to help you along the way and hopefully inspire you. I know you guys probably have a lot more follow-up questions about the details of how to become your own boss and work from anywhere in the world. Please let me know what your questions are and I will answer them in future videos. So please be sure to subscribe to my channel and learn how you can live this untethered life. Thanks for watching.